In this video, we're going to go through this bowl and basket bag that you picked up here from the LLC, which contains your second uh, set of supplies as part of your maker take-home kit. So let's have a look and see what's inside. Just try to identify everything that's in there, say what it might be for, and maybe even give you some ideas as to how you could use a few of these things toward your current LED project or your final project. Or maybe you start using some of this stuff in the project next semester. All right, let's see what we have in here first. Well, depending on which bag you picked up, you may have seen something sticking out of the bag, right? Some of you had a big piece of wood like this sticking out of your bag, right? And about half of you received this. The other half of you received a big chunk of some of that Plastizina clay. So this is non-hardening clay. You can sculpt with it, let it sit out, and it doesn't harden. You don't bake it in the kiln, but it's really easy to sculpt with. And I think we mentioned this. Everyone had some of this in their first kit, but we provided some of you with a bigger block of it, just to try to distribute some of these extra materials that we had and put a little variety in there. So remember that this is the type of clay that can be heated up. People can put it into the oven on low heat for a couple minutes and watch as it starts to soften, which can make it a lot easier to break apart and work with, right? And people can add food coloring to this, and it's water resistant, which is really cool. You may have seen me use this in an activity I think I may have showed in class where we made a fake beach inside of a big Tupperware container, like a real big storage container. We made a beach in there, and the beach surface, the sand was made out of this, and we were putting storm surge barriers that the students had created down into the clay. So we weren't even using it for modeling. We were basically using it for the fact that it's heavy, it's water resistant. We could stick things in it and then pull things out and cover the hole back up. So pretty cool material there, that Plastizina clay. And the other piece again is this piece of wood. This is a piece of paneling, and it's interesting because you look at the front, it looks all weathered, you know. But when you see it on the back, you can see that these are brand new pieces of shiplap or reclaimed wood that a company had cut out, and then they did some treatments to the surface of this material to weather it and make it look old, right? So I thought this would be a good material that you could cut up. You could use it as a structural material, right? For the function of something, for how something's going to be built or made. It's a structural material. You could also use it for its form, its aesthetic qualities, for the appearance that it gives off here. It's got some neat texture to it, some different colors in it. It's also made out of pine. I could tell that by the wood grain, by the smell of it. And pines are really soft in terms of ductility. It's a softwood, right? But it's also a softwood because it comes from a tree with needles, a conifer. We have hardwoods and softwoods. If you remember in the last kit, I showed you that piece of balsa wood that was so soft you could push into it with your fingers, like you could even take a bite out of it. But it actually classifies as a hardwood from a deciduous tree, a tree with leaves. So this is a softwood that is also soft to the touch. But cool piece of pine here. It's like maybe a quarter of an inch thick, probably by 5-6 inches. And yeah, let's see what else we got in here. Well, you've got so everybody should have two different spools of the PLA filament, which is what goes into your 3D printers, right? These are all sealed up, airtight, regardless, even if it doesn't have to be. I like to just keep all my printer filaments and liquids, anything that I can out of the light and stored in the cabinet somewhere. But with this PLA, you've got 2 rolls here, which is a lot. You can pop these on and off onto your 3D printer and change them out once you learn how to extrude. To clean out your printer head and expunge the existing material that's inside and pump new stuff through. Um, so hopefully you receive 2 different colors in there. If not, there's a chance you could swap out with me for one of my colors. So this is your 3D printer filament. If you did get your printer set up, of course, you're welcome to start using this. This isn't dedicated to any specific project, all right? But hopefully you can put it to task in the next courses as well. So if you did use this up, right, you'd have to purchase some more, and you can actually purchase material from the makerspace on campus, especially if you're using it on site. We could ask Todd more about the specifics on that. But I do know that they have materials for sale up there for people to utilize in their projects. All right, let's take a look down here at the circuits bag. Switch my cameras over here to the overhead. There we go. Let's see what's inside here. I know you had AA battery packs, but nope. We didn't all receive AA batteries in the last kit, right? So adjust this lighting. Okay, so we've got these AA batteries, and 2 different kinds here. You know, the cheapos, the Amazon Basics, probably the cheaper ones that you can get on Amazon. Right? You'll notice that they're stored in packs like this so that they cannot come in contact with water or moisture, and also so that they don't roll around in the box and touch each other, because as you learn in a circuits lesson, you could have a short circuit if these batteries started to connect to each other or connect to something else where they could start releasing their energy. So you want to keep these in your packs like this. It's a good thing to do with them at home as well, right? And what's the cool thing about the batteries and the way they're packaged here is that it's meant so that you could split these up and still keep them in their container. What do I mean by that? You can grab 3 of these batteries and 2 of these batteries and twist perfectly away from each other with a nice shear force, and you should be able to split the pack into sections and then still leave some of the wrapper on there. Let's see if I can do that myself. Perfect. Isn't that cool? That saves you from having to rewrap these things later. Nice little trick. Another thing I want you to notice here is that you have a couple different types of these batteries. I'm going to switch over that other camera. It's not helpful with the light. You'll notice that these say industrial alkaline. Industrial alkaline. So if you buy Amazon batteries that are industrial, they're just a couple cents more per battery. But the idea is that these are typically bought by because they're a little bit more expensive. They're also expected to last longer and hold up better to the elements like moisture, humidity, dampness, things like that. So if you're wondering the difference, this is a higher quality battery because of the industrial, right? You should also have a 9-volt battery in your box there, in your bag. And this can be hooked up to the battery snap. And remember that we're using these 9-volt batteries when we wire our soldered LEDs together. Remember when we did the soldering lesson and we learned to solder on these LEDs, not the other ones? And when it comes to these LEDs, they may not seem as bright when you first hook them up to the battery. Let's see if we can get something to light up here. They're not going to seem as bright, especially from the side. And You look at the LED from the side, it doesn't seem like it's too bright. But if you were to put this thing right up into your eye and look at it head on, right over the crest of the dome tip on here, you'll find out just why these are super bright LEDs and why these were going to be used originally in the lightsaber activity. Because if you could put this underneath of an acrylic rod or tube or something else like that, or even have some type of magnifying lens over it, one or two of these LEDs will light up uh, or illuminate something above it, especially if it's diffused. But just know that about these LEDs. These are not the wide angle LEDs with the concave scoop out of the top of them like the other ones that we use from the holiday lights. These are sold separately as loose LEDs, individual LEDs, and you can wire them up in parallel and put different colors together to achieve different outcomes. You could put blue and red striped LEDs together to get purple. And what you'll notice is the different colored LEDs will either have the color of the LED on one wire, and then the other wire will likely either be a black or white. And that may signify if whatever color your LED is on the other wire, if it's a light version of that, or if it's a darker version of that color. So some of you might see a bright yellow or a golden yellow. The golden yellows would have yellow on one wire and then black down the other strip, whereas the really bright yellow color would have the same yellow on one wire, but it would have white on the other wire. You'll see that when you start hooking them up. So I wanted to give you a couple more of these LEDs to supplement what you already had in the first kit. And then you should see these fingertips in here, these silicone fingertips, which not only could be used for counting up money, but they're for safety with the hot glue gun, right? And you see that they come in different sizes, and they're often sold with a set for one hand, where there's different sizes and shapes to go on each finger. I tried to give everybody a couple different ones, but I didn't have enough to give everybody, all five. So you could check these out. Two different varieties in here. Ones with the extra studs on off the end of them, and then these that just have smaller outcroppings of bumps. Moving on. Let's go inside the brown paper bag and see what's in here. Well, one of the things that didn't pop out of my bag that I know I put into yours, and I'm going to look up a picture of it here on Google, is the self-leveling sensor for the Ender 2 version 3. Ender 3 version 2. Yeah, so inside of this brown bag, I'm going to pull this picture down. See what it looks like. So there would be a little package in this brown paper bag that has one component in here about the size of your thumb, right? Yours would probably look like this. It is a self-leveling sensor, and once you have your 3D printer put together, this is something that we bought as an add-on. It's an upgrade, right? And you can install this onto your printer. You don't have to, but if you install this onto your printer after the fact, this hooks up to the extrusion head, and this little piece down here, when the head goes up and down, will bump into the table before your extrusion nozzle does, and it will send a signal back to the system here that says, hey, this is how far away the plate is from the extruder head. And That way it'll always level itself out so that you don't have to go through the process of turning those knobs underneath and trying to make sure that the bed is level before each print. All right, so getting something like this is something you could do once you have the printer set up if you're interested. But you could also just hold on to it, keep it in the package, and when you're ready, you can pull this thing out and we can go over how to assemble it. Or I'm sorry, how to just attach it onto the printer. Pretty simple, and you also get to have you'll have to go online and find a piece of like a little program patch and download it to that thumb drive with the SD card that comes with the printer, and that's how you'll upgrade the firmware um, to run with that sensor. But that could be for a future time. Pull this back off here. All right, what else do we have in here? Well, you see more of these wire nuts and wire caps, right? These could be helpful in either project when you're soldering or not soldering, but for electric circuits, remember the gray ones are smaller than the blue ones, and they're for accepting different amounts or different gauges of wire. Inside this little plastic bag, we have what looks like a cupcake wrapper. And inside is another little electrical component. And if you look up close to it, you'll see it has these little yellow squiggly lines in it. And this is a light sensor. This is a light sensor. And this little electrical component on the surface here, it's a photovoltaic sensor. That's another way they put it, a photovoltaic sensor, a photovoltaic switch. And photo meaning light. And this would just sense that there's a presence of light. And it kind of can work just like a switch. If this is inside of a circuit, when it senses light, it allows current to continue to pass through. But these can also be wired into circuit boards or other circuits, like there's little solar powered driveway lights that you have out front of your house maybe. And what they would do in the solar powered driveway lights is when the little light is sensing that there's sunlight outside, well then it takes the electricity that's coming through the solar panel on the unit and starts to charge the battery. But when it notices that there's no light because it's dark out, well then it switches and lets the electricity go right to the light bulb in your solar powered driveway light instead of charging the battery. So it's basically a switch that sends the electricity that's coming through the solar panel either into charging the battery, or switches the circuit so that the battery is then powering the light, all whether or not there's the presence of sunlight in this photovoltaic switch. You'll notice some green tubing in here. This is the same diameter as the tubing that you had in your first kit that was clear, right? The clear acrylic tubing that could be used in conjunction with some of those little syringes for doing hydraulics or pneumatics. And basically a way to let the air or the water travel through from one syringe to the other if you're making a little control system. But this tube is green specifically because it would be used for use in gardening or hydroponics or anywhere where there's going to be water running or air running in a place that's outside and exposed to sunlight. If you were to do some type of hydroponics activity or something outside with running water, you know that if light can touch the water, the things will grow algae. Or they'll get mucky over time. And so I included this because this could be useful if you wanted to take some of the next supplies we're going to look at and use them for your own activity for your final project. If you're interested in doing something with hydroponics, there's a soda bottle hydroponic system design challenge that's out there that I have a lot of resources for. And if it's something you're interested in, growing plants without any soil, taking on a challenge like that for your final project, if you're looking for one, could be fun. But I also thought it'd be nice for you to have something where you can create and make around living things, which is why I included these basil seeds in here, nice and dry inside the envelope. You open it up, the seeds are so small, the basil seeds, but they germinate quickly. And basil seeds only have to be in the dirt, in the warm dirt that's moist, for a couple days before they start to shoot up sprouts and germinate. All right. You can also germinate these seeds in something that's not soil, like these green bricks here. They look like fiberglass, but they're not. They're actually rock wool, ROCKWOOL, rock wool. If you ever went to the grocery store and you found basil growing out of the clear plastic bags where the basil's still alive, and you bring the whole plant home from the grocery store, that's hydroponically grown. And if you went to the bottom of that bag, you'd see that the whole plant was growing out of a cube like this. And in hydroponics, we don't use any dirt. And so in a hydroponics setup or system, no matter how large or how small, seeds always get started in this medium instead of dirt. And this takes the place of soil. It's nice and loose, can get air, can hold moisture just like soil does, and it's an inert medium, meaning that it won't upset the balance of whatever system it's put in terms of the pH or anything like that. It doesn't really decompose. It's made of rock. The same way cotton candy, those fibers in cotton candy are made from rock hard chunks of sugar, right? They'll take they're heated up in a machine and then spun around, and when they're nice and melting, turn into fibers, and that's how they make cotton candy from rock sugar. Well, real rocks can be heated up and melted down and have air blown through them and spun into big fibers, just like cotton candy is made, except they'll produce this product called rock wool. It's great insulation material. It's also really great for hydroponics, because in hydroponics we have water moving around, and water is just going to make the soil rush all over the place and flow over. And so it doesn't help in hydroponics. Obviously, it's about having no dirt or soil whatsoever. But starting plants like this is pretty cool. And so I thought, if you were interested, just for fun on the side, or for your final project, or if you maybe you thought you could utilize this in one of the future courses. This little brick here can have your seeds planted in it about 1/4 of an inch down, right into the hole that's there. And if you can keep this thing a little bit moist and outside in the warm sunlight, or even better, trapped underneath some type of a dome, right? Like its own mini greenhouse. Oh my gosh, Chris, what are you talking about? That sounds crazy. No, it's not that crazy. I have a mini greenhouse right here. Boom. Whew. Oh no, one of my plants is getting crushed. These are a bunch of sunflowers I planted. And what you'll see here is that all these rock wool cubes, they've got algae growing on them. Speaking of why things can't get access to the sunlight, or else they'll grow. And each one of these cubes here had one seed planted in it. These are sunflowers. They were planted about a week ago. Look how big they are already. And you can use these planting trays and fill them with dirt, but you can also just as easily put these cubes inside. And I thought you could possibly even utilize this plastic bag or saran wrap or plexiglass or anything out there to create your own little dome and tray where you could start seedlings just like these. And what happens is, as the plants germinate, the dome traps in the nice warm air, the greenhouse gas, right? The greenhouse effect. And I start plants in something like this for a few weeks before I put them outside and plant them in dirt or in pots. So hydroponics does fall into the biotechnology area, which is one of the 7 areas of the human design world that a lot of project-based learning would fall within. And you have some seeds there, you have some rock wool, and if you're interested, when we talk about your one-on-one project, if something like this is stuff you're interested in, you could bring it up to me, and I'll take you through in more depth. But essentially, once plants sprout and you've got them germinated, you take this cube and you transplant it to something else, and they could get transplanted into the dirt. You can grow put this into the garden. But I'm going to show you a picture of some hydroponics being done out of a soda bottle. Again, given that it's about springtime, I thought this might be an appropriate thing for you to take interest in. if you like this sort of stuff. Or maybe you don't have a green thumb, and this is a chance for you to challenge yourself. We'll find these pictures here. Construction, biotech, hydroponics. Just pull up some of my pictures here. See what we got. Sorry about this. More pictures here than I thought I had in this album. There we go. So there's a bunch of 2-liter soda bottles that have essentially had the top of the bottle cut right above where the label normally sits, and then the top of the bottle gets flipped upside down and then sits back in the rest of the bottle as a cup. And if we look closer at these pictures, you can see that each cup has a bunch of brown pebbles in it. Well, what the heck are those brown pebbles? Well, those brown pebbles are made of clay, and they're expanded clay pellets, also called hydroton or hydrocorals. But it's a very standard product used in hydroponics that also takes the place of soil. And what you see in here is cucumber plants that are growing out of one of those little green cubes of rock wool, surrounded by these hydrocoral pebbles. And there's a wick made out of some old t-shirt material that is touching the bottom of that cube and then gets pulled down and sits in the bottom of the 2-liter soda bottle, which acts as a reservoir. And through capillary action, water will get sucked up that wick and keep the bottom of that cube moist. And in practicality, all you need is this basic thing here to make the plant grow and not use any soil. And this is a hydroponic system, the most basic one you can have without even having any moving parts. But it also serves as the basis of a design challenge where you start with that, and then your job might be requirements to do things to your little soda bottle hydroponic system that would make the plant growth or would make the plant grow more optimally. What could you do to really improve the environment for this plant? Could you keep could you find a way to check the level of the water? The student has some type of dipstick mechanism. Could you find a way to keep this thing standing up even when a plant's growing out of it and it gets top heavy? Could you find a way to keep that water cool at the bottom of the 2-liter, even though it might be sitting in a window or outside in the 90-degree heat? Because we know warm water is no good. It doesn't fit in the oxygen. And plant roots need dissolved oxygen in their water. So there's a bunch of new problems that are presented just by the basic hydroponic system. And so the design challenge could be to create subsystems on here. Again, if you're interested in something like this, I can go over some of the resources with you if you were to take something like that on as a design challenge. But you can see all kinds of interesting creations that students have come up with for addressing the different requirements that might go with that design challenge, and then the type of plant they might have inside, where they're going to put it. Really cool thing. Again, I don't want to spend any more time on it now, just to tell you about what those things are that are in that bag and what they're for. And you may not even utilize them this time around in class, but you have a bag here with at least a pound of the hydrocorals, the expanded clay pellets, and you would see that your bag might have a little moisture inside of it. That's good, because when these are sold, they come in a much bigger bag that traps in the moisture with it, so that when you pull these out, they're not all dry and dusty, right? And so these take the place of soil. And they also have a bunch of other applications too you could use for other projects, but that's all about those for now. And I think there was one other thing inside here, and that was a pack of your blades. So be very careful. This envelope has blades inside, a bunch of number 11 X-Acto razor blades. They've all been uh, uh, wrapped up inside individually and then taped up over so that you can't get poked. All right, but be very careful when opening this up. You might want to use a scissor to slice along the side and see if you can pop it open and let things fall down. Remember, having a magnet handy is a nice way to be able to pick up some razor blades or check for them on the floor or around your area if you don't want to be getting stuck with your finger. All right. And last but not least, oh, I missed this. I think some of these were in your first kit. These are washers that actually go around a brass fastener. So we've all used brass fasteners before, right? You push the two little tines through and spread them so the papers don't go apart. But you could actually add this to the other end and put the tines through here, and it acts as a washer, which would make the brass fastener a little bit more stable, and could even function as like an axle if you're going to make something that spins. In any event, that's everything that's in that second kit. I know it's not a very in-depth video right now, but you got a lot on your minds, a lot on your plates, and just wanted you to know what's inside here at your disposal. And I think that's it for now. I'll see everybody later.